Note: this experience was posted to a mailing list some years ago. It is one of my favorite trip reports, and I thought I would share it. It is pretty long, but that's because I wrote it just after the weekend it happened, wanting to get as much down as I could. Enjoy. Well, if you haven't noticed, I have been particularly interested in MDMA in the past month or so. I have had the chance to have 3 very good strong trips with a large group of beautiful, energy-filled people. I thought it might be a good idea if I tossed out some of the things that came up on our last trip, which happened this past Friday. All 18 of us arrived at the campsite at about 7:30 or 8 p.m. After some setup and initial minor problems, we finally dropped at 9 o'clock. We were camping at Honeyman Campgrounds, right next to the sand dunes, 9 miles south of Florence, Oregon. Once we dropped, we grabbed all our stuff and headed for the dunes. After the first dune we had to climb from the road in the campground, our hearts were pumping. We sat down just at the top and rested for a bit. One of our group walked off to a higher point and begged all of us to follow. Upon getting to the spot he had found, we saw in the western sky the full moon just beginning to rise. It was colored a deep yellow-orange. As it quickly rose, as you stared at it, it took forever, but if you looked away and looked back it had jumped up. The feelings in me rose. I got my first real taste of the trip when I felt some tingles and decided to run down the dune we were on. Oh, the rush. A particularly interesting thing I noticed and have noticed the other 2 times is the initial period of discomfort that some people feel just at the onset, particularly novices. I got it for a minute or 2 on the first trip in the beginning of April, though my second MDMA trip altogether. The discomfort would last no longer than 10 or 15 minutes, then the person would suddenly feel better, charged, and ecstatic. My theory on this discomfort is that as the drug begins to take effect, the mind and body are not prepared for the new sensations and energies that are flowing through them, and a discord is struck until the mental patterns harmonize with the X-induced waveform, if that makes any sense. Anyway, we ended up breaking up into small groups and running back into each other for a while. At one point, I searched out 3 others who were 2 dunes away. As I crested one dune and made my way into the valley of the next, something was nagging at my brain. When I stopped in the valley between the 2 dunes I noticed what it was: silence, absolute silence. At the crest, you could hear the ocean rumbling, some birds, some frogs, and some talking in the distance. But in the valley, there was nothing. It is really rare in this day and age to experience pure absolute silence, and it was beautiful. I proceeded to find the 3 others, whereupon 2 of them initiated a bout of singing, "Wish You Were Here," by Pink Floyd. I love to sing normally, and singing with the 2 other guys was such a thrill. We were keeping perfect time with each other, and it sounded, and felt, marvelous. The girl that was with us at this time was feeling a little discomfort, and I needed some water, and one of the guys needed to ramble, so we split, with the lone guy wandering off, and 3 of us walking back to the moonspot. After getting some water, and mulling about, I wanted to ramble too. At about this point, me and a friend realized that we were soon approaching the point where those who were going to take supplements should be taking them. The friend who wandered off alone was taking one, but didn't know. So 3 of us set off to find him. When we reached the spot of splitting up, he was not within hearing range. We have a hemp call that we use to find each other. So 2 of us decided to press on while the other went back to take his and inform the others. Us 2 weren't taking the supplement. We proceeded on, over a couple of dunes, calling now and then, talking to each other. This was the guy's first MDMA trip, so great time to open himself up and connect with each other. We passed a pool and proceed up another dune. About halfway up we decided to stop, rest, have a cig, and that we would call at the top of the dune, and if we couldn't find him, go back to the others. We knew the wanderer would be alright. He likes to ramble off a lot, experienced tripper. Done XA couple times, all of the 3 in the last month with me. We turned around and sat down and were at the most beautiful spot. There was a little fat banana-shaped pool of water, with a little hump in the middle curve of it, with some forest to the right, moon reflecting of the pond, wavering in the ripples, sky full of stars, perfectly clear night, frogs croaking in their oh-so-trippy way. We sat there for a while talking, looking at the stars. At one point we saw a star moving, then stop. Thought it might be a UFO, but I was having star waverings all night. At one point we were laying on the dune, and I felt totally pure, clean, and comfortable. My mind was an absolute blank. I didn't have a thought in my head. I was just lying on a huge dune of sand, absorbing the energies of the stars. I turned and asked my friend if his mind was just totally clear like mine, and he replied with a really mellow, "Yay." We continued to kick it there, where he confessed some cool out-of-body dreams he had had to me, when suddenly we heard in the distance, "Hemp." I let him finish his dream talk when I proceeded to bellow out my reply. The wanderer followed our voices to the spot, a good thing too, he was heading in the wrong direction. We went back, met up with the group, and proceeded to drag them to the spot, which took like half an hour. Smiley face. Closing parenthesis. Of course they loved it, took off their shoes and walked in the water, tried to catch frogs, etc. We trudged on to find some huge angles to run, jump down. Most of us would fall, but it was worth it. Mushed around here for a bit, started getting really cold, were off and on cold through the night. Movement helped a lot, so most of us proceeded back. Slowly but surely made it back to the warm fire, which we had thankfully started before we left. We smoked a bowl or two and got really tired. My lids were already drooping on the walk back. We found our appropriate spots and went to sleep. I left out a lot, as per my hazy memory, and much of it would have to be taken in context. On the whole, it was an incredible trip. I highly recommend taking MDMA with a large group of friends. Each time I trip with these people, I feel we get closer and closer. I have a piece of every single one of their hearts residing inside me now. We have tasted each other's energies and loved it. One of the fun things about a big group trip is that it is inevitable that you will break up into splinter groups, but keep meeting back up in the whole, and get stoked every time. Smiley face. And of course, the more hugs you can get in a row, the better. Smiley face.